Hello and welcome to Micro Studio's video. Today I will tell you about working with the HDF. We have a video on building the actual HDF building on our YouTube channel, so you can check it out for more details. I will just go over the basics. So to start with, HDF comes in form of the sheets of the HDF. What is HDF? HDF is high density fiberboard. So basically it's milled wood with some special glue that is pressed together to form the sheets of various thicknesses. We use mostly 3mm thick sheets. So all the buildings, all the parts are designed in such a way as to actually utilize those 3mm thick material. All the parts are on the sheets and they have the small connector pieces that are left uncut by the laser that you can either just push through if you are basically feeling adventurous and you can cope with the randomness of the actually pushing the parts together from the sheet, or you can methodically just cut all the connecting pieces on the sheet and make it much more reliable when pushing the part from the sheet. Now I didn't cut this part whole way through, so as you can see, this is what I was talking about. This is the randomness you can get. This part is actually damaged. It is inside of the building, because on the outside the HDF is always cut through at least a half of the thickness of the sheet, so you will not have to deal with this sort of thing on the outside of the building. And if you are just assembling buildings in a hurry, or you don't care what the inside is because you will just glue them shut, then you can just take the sheet, pull the pieces out, and it speeds the process much more. But if you care for the detail, then just add 10 more minutes per building and just cut all those pieces all the way through. Not just skim like I did, but all the way through. Now you can see that this piece here is much more cleaner than my initial thing that was actually having this piece splayed apart. Working with HDF may make you have yellow fingers, like if you were smoking or something, some very cheap Russian tobacco. What I like to do is first wear an apron when I'm working on any modeling stuff. So I hope this is not holding my mic. So this apron catches all the little pieces that may fall out on my knees, and then especially on the HDF, I use examination gloves. Now what this does, it makes all the HDF, this black stuff that is here, this is basically the charcoal that the laser burns through the wood and the glue that holds the high density fibers together, and this is why you get this yellow thing, and this makes it all stay on the gloves. So then you save some time just brushing your hands and fingers, and you don't get these weird looks when you when the postie comes and you open the door and you look like trouble. So this is cutting HDF. What you'd use to glue HDF. Most of our buildings are designed in such a way that you can just push the parts together and they will sit. These are basically not designed to fit together, but this is 3mm by 3mm. This is also 3mm by 3mm. It is a tight fit. So for the most part, this is how it should look. So most of the parts are designed to fit tightly. But if you want to glue them together, use white glue. White glue is just basically wood glue. So it is white, it is runny, it is somewhat thick. This is how it looks. Yep. And you apply it to the part you want to glue, preferably with a brush, maybe an 8, an old brush. You apply it in the places that you need. Up to 5 minutes it can stay in the air. Then you just put the pieces together and read the description how much it will require you to actually set. Usually it sets overnight, so it's a few hours, at least a few hours, up to a day to actually set firmly. You can use cyanoacrylate superglue, but only the thick one. The normal, regular, runny one that you get in the shops, in all the stores, it's not really working on the HDF. Similarly to cardboard, HDF just soaks, drinks this wood, this glue, and it doesn't stay on the surface enough to actually connect, to create a bond with another piece of HDF. So use white glue. Get it a little bit of time. Painting. Now there are several different approaches you can take with painting HDF. You can just use acrylic paints and they are fine, and you can use paint it without prior to assembly and have this puzzle jigsaw of various colored materials. I showed you this technique on Volsung video on painting HDF, so you can check it out also. You can also paint with acrylics on the completed buildings. The downside is that it takes a lot of paint. It takes really a lot of paint. So if you are using these hobby paints, like modeling paints, then you are just painting your money on the buildings. So what you want to do actually is to use some sort of artist paint, like this is some sort of brand. We just use it because we have it in here. It's My Mary. It's I think Italian paint. It's very thick. It's very thick, and it covers really well. So this is the sort of paint you want to use on those buildings. Another thing, another take you can take on actually painting the HDF is spray painting them. And this is the way I do for the most part. I spray paint them after I assemble the buildings. And then I basically use airbrush to add some colors. Now you may or may not have an airbrush. I recommend you actually testing one, but this is only viable if you actually paint a lot. Yeah, so airbrush is expensive relatively to the paintbrushes. Then there is the time that you have to add for cleaning and preparing, and then there is all the other materials like the air compressor, other things. So airbrush is a great fun, it's a great material, it's a great tool, but for the most part with acrylics you're completely fine. Yeah, but I will now show you how to paint the HDF with spray paint. With spray painting HDF, you might want to start with the gray undercoat or the black undercoat. I prefer the black undercoat, even if I want to paint the building white or gray, and I will show you why. Let's start with the gray undercoat. So let's start with the small building. I'll just take one story of it and sprays, but as you can see, the color and the grain of the HDF is showing through. And I have tried a lot of different makes of the spray paint, and especially the black areas, which is the charcoal and glue that the laser melts, and this is the messy stuff that you actually get on your fingers. It just soaks the paint and stays black, so it requires a lot of covers of the gray spray paint. So what I prefer to do is to actually spray the whole building black first, then let it dry, and then if I want I can take another go with the gray spray paint, or I just use an airbrush and use the gray acrylic primers I will tell you about later. So just start with the black, and as you can see, it covers completely in one go. And just remember, even though it might look black, it is still the glue with the charcoal. So remember to always spray paint those areas twice. first to actually start to sealing them, and then once it's a little bit dry, then hit it again with the black spray paint. It really helps later, especially if you are going for a bright building. Yeah. So I'll just continue and we'll come to it later. We're back inside. Now I have a few words about the spray I use, because you may wonder why this might make and not another. There are plenty of actual model spray manufacturers. What I found is that for the most part they are pretty much the same as the cheap primer sprays for the basically for the automotive market, so for the cars. So this is just an universal enamel outside inside spray paint, black undercoat, matte. That's it. So it costs in Poland about 20 odd zloty, so it's divided by 4 something, 4 euro, so it's about 4 to 5 euro, and $5 to $6 or $7 maybe. So this is the amount of money you should pay for the sprays, and they are perfectly fine. So similar goes for the other colors, but it's really hard to find the correct colors on the automotive market. So for the black, you may want to stick with the automotive cars, but if you really want to spray with like some army green or like British some other color, then you may be forced to use other makes. I know Army Painter makes pretty good sprays, and they are good value for money. So if I am to plug any company, yeah, so Army Painter, it is one company I have already actually tested, and I can say that yeah, if you are not finding these cheap automotive spray paints, then yeah. Okay, so aside from the spray paint, we have completed our spraying of the buildings. It is not perfect, but this is for demonstration purpose. Normally I would most likely add another layer and maybe some just take a closer inspection on some angles. As you may or may not see, there are some small angles here and there that there is some wood still showing, but for the demonstration purposes this is perfectly fine. It will still be darker in those shades than the paint I will be using.